20 years ago, after planes crashed into the Twin Towers in New York and the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., the U.S. government led by George W. Bush gave Pakistan, the neighbor to Afghanistan where the Taliban was based, an ultimatum. Either join the American forces in the global war on terror or face the same consequences as the Taliban regime in Afghanistan in 2001. The Pakistanis chose to ally themselves with the Americans, receiving tens of billions of dollars in something called coalition support funds, but also accusations of playing a double game between the Americans and the Taliban, who they are accused of being supportive of, and the Taliban of being proxies of Pakistan of. I sat down with the Pakistan ambassador to Afghanistan, Mansoor Ahmad Khan, and asked him what the legacy of the 9/11 attacks was 20 years later. With the Taliban now returning to power, what is at stake for Pakistan? Mansoor Ahmad Khan, thank you so much for speaking to us. A few days ago, there were people outside the gates of this embassy chanting slogans like "Death to Pakistan." Why was this, Ambassador Mansoor Ahmad Khan?
I'll just start with a very important parameter of Pakistan's foreign policy with regard to Afghanistan, that peace in Afghanistan is of great importance for Pakistan. If there is peace and stability in Afghanistan, it augurs well for Pakistan, it is in Pakistan's interest, and vice versa, if there is lack of peace and stability in Afghanistan, continued conflict, internal strife, warfare, the instability also permeates into Pakistan because of the deep-rooted social, economic and cultural context between our two countries. Now, Pakistan in the past few years, in the past many years, has been playing a role for bringing lasting peace to Afghanistan in the international efforts for peace and stability in Afghanistan. And Pakistan's role all along these years has been constructive, and our focus has been that there has to be a political resolution of Afghanistan issue.
But there wasn't a political resolution.
Yeah,
the previous dispensation escaped.
Yes.
The Taliban walked into a vacuum.
Yes.
And there have been protests against them and against Pakistan.
In the peace process, which was continuing, and it was an internationally sponsored peace process, there were international powers like US, Russia, China, and among the neighbors Pakistan, which was part of the Troika Plus. The effort was underway, very serious effort was underway since the US-Taliban agreement was signed, that the three important Afghan interlocutors, which was Afghan government, Afghan political leaders, and Afghan Taliban, they should come to an understanding that a dispensation, a transition, something like that is agreed among them so that the withdrawal of US and NATO forces can take place peacefully, can take place through a political process. While the engagement in the peace process continued and all these sides remain engaged in Doha, and there were also engagement in other capitals like Moscow and other parts, but the date of the withdrawal came close, and there was no common ground which could provide an understanding or a framework for a transition or a political system.
Did that find you on the back foot? The fact that there was no transition?
No, actually, international community was very, very sincerely engaged in this process. Afghanistan's neighbors wanted a political process, and they want a political stability in Afghanistan. But the thing is that the peace has to come in Afghanistan through the intra-Afghan process. And in the intra-Afghan process, all important interlocutors were engaged, and Afghan political leaders and Afghan Taliban are engaged even now. So you saw that
even after the announcement of the interim government.
I think even after the announcement of the interim government, Afghan political leaders, including Dr. Abdullah, former President Hamid Karzai, and Gulbuddin Hikmatyar are there. We also remain engaged with, along with the new government which has come into new interim political setup, which has been announced by Taliban a couple of days ago. We also remain engaged with other Afghan interlocutors, because I think at the end of the day, in the longer term, peace and stability in Afghanistan will require a process of political reconciliation. And I think the Afghan Taliban leadership has also stated that this is an interim setup. They have instituted a setup according to the current conditions, and as they move forward, they will look into or they will address the requirements of a political reconciliation within the society. And I think that is important.
It's been 20 years since the 9/11 attacks.
Yes.
In those 20 years, Pakistan has been accused by the Americans, by elements in the Northern Lines, by the previous government here, of being the primary backer, financial, military, for the Afghan Taliban. What is the level of support that Pakistan has provided the Taliban over these 20 years?
Pakistan has been consistently saying there is no military solution to the Afghan conflict, and there is a need for a political resolution of the conflict. And therefore, since 2001, immediately in the years following 2001, Pakistan made these proposals to the Americans, to the Afghan politicians, to the Afghan government here, then Afghan government here, that there should be a political reconciliation. There should be a process of political reconciliation between the Afghan government and Taliban at that time. And if that advice was heeded to or was accepted by the international community, by the major powers at that time, I think the results would have been different. The political settlement would have been much easier at that time. But somehow it did not happen. But now again, we are in a phase where we have to focus on peace and stability in Afghanistan, lasting peace and stability in Afghanistan. The change that has happened has luckily not been accompanied by bloodshed or by violence, and there have been this issue of Panjshir or occasional, issues of violence, but largely this has been a peaceful change. And building upon that, I think it is important, through international community's engagement, there should be an effort for stabilization of Afghanistan, so that peace and stability in Afghanistan brings peace and stability and economic connectivity to the region and adds to the peace and international peace and stability.
So there is no truth in these assertions that the Taliban is a Pakistan proxy, that Pakistan has invaded Afghanistan, as certain resistance front movement leaders are asserting?
I think that is not true. Pakistan has deep-rooted connections with all segments of Afghan society. Pakistan has at the moment 4 millions of Afghans living in Pakistan. All people, Afghans belonging to all ideologies and all sections of society have been coming to Pakistan even during this phase when this change was taking place and an evacuation took place from Afghanistan. Many Afghans also left, and many of the Afghans who were associated with the past regime or who have been working independently in the politics have decided to go to Pakistan, have been going on daily basis. Even now, Pakistan is the country which is receiving most of the Afghans in this phase when people are fearing some uncertainty, some degree of uncertainty. We hope that this degree of uncertainty will settle and the people will come back. But Pakistan is the preferred choice, being the closest neighbor of Afghans.
Going on that point,
yes,
your embassy is said to have helped many other missions in Kabul
yes,
evacuate, including
yes,
Turkey, including
yes,
others.
Yes.
Tell us about that phase. What happened on August 15th, and what was your response? You were the man here.
Yeah. In that process, we came forward and we helped not only people leave through PIA flights from the airport to Pakistan, but soon when the civilian side of the airport was rendered dysfunctional and the only military side was working, and thousands of Afghans were surrounding the airport in the hope of leaving on the evacuation planes being run by the Western countries or the United States. In that process also, we tried to help address this issue in a humanitarian manner, and all those embassies, including Turkish embassy, but there were other embassies also, World Bank people and others, we helped them not only move, a safe passage towards the airport, but also when the airport civilian side of the airport was rendered dysfunctional. We sent many people, and we continue to send them through Torkham. So this is this exercise has been taken in the hope that the things stabilize, and those people who are leaving for temporary relocation to Pakistan can come back and serve in their institutions here.
So that was a critical role. You mentioned the World Bank has 300, Pakistan helped evacuate 300 Afghan citizens who were working for the World Bank.
Yes.
And we were on the flight that actually came from Pakistan here and took those people back. In the days before the government was announced, the interim setup was announced, the Pakistan ISI chief, Lieutenant General Faiz Hamid, arrived in Kabul and made a public appearance, so to speak, and you were with him as well. He spoke to Channel 4, but it had an opposite reaction in certain circles here. A lot of Afghans, especially in Kabul, were infuriated because they were hearing rumors of Pakistan militarily supporting the Taliban, and then they see the ISI chief arrive on a visible tour. What was the reason for the ISI chief's visit to Kabul?
Pakistan has a regular interaction with Afghanistan on security issues, on political issues, and other countries also have this interaction. US CIA's chief was also here for some time ago. So I think this has been negatively played by certain quarters, but the essence of the matter is that Pakistan's focus has been, during this phase too, Pakistan's focus has been on doing everything which can stabilize the situation in Afghanistan. And our focus has continued to remain on helping Afghanistan in getting peace and stability, in getting normalization during this phase. And as I explained, there have been others also who have been coming to Afghanistan. There has been no one has been barred from coming to Afghanistan for playing that role. Yes, not only via Pakistan, but also, I mean, other countries are also interacting with Afghanistan independently.
There have been a lot of rumors, a lot of fake news circulating that Pakistan sent in military jets, drones to help the Taliban capture the Panjshir Valley. I know your response, but I would like you to just put it on the record.
But you have yourself said a lot of fake news. When these news came on the social media and a verification process went in, all of these news have been proved fake, and all of these news have emanated from India. So you can imagine there is a propaganda campaign that is going on. Pakistan has nothing to do with the internal affairs of Afghanistan, including Panjshir. We have been part of a political process, internationally sponsored peace process to support peace and stability in Afghanistan, to facilitate these efforts. Beyond that, Pakistan has no agenda of interference in Afghanistan's internal affairs. Afghanistan is a sovereign country. Afghanistan's new government has to undertake all those actions, which including their international obligations and commitments. Pakistan has no role in Afghanistan's internal politics.
But
that is the bottom line for us.
But Pakistan is helping people leave if they want to. A lot of people ask us a question on the streets, the people that we meet. Two questions. Can they get a visa to Pakistan or for Pakistan so that they can leave via Pakistan? And secondly, when will Pakistan open the border gates to allow people to leave if they want to?
Pakistan has a deep-rooted people-to-people engagement with Afghanistan. As I told you, at the moment, around 4 million Afghans are living in Pakistan, whether refugees or those who are undocumented. In this phase also, Pakistan has adopted a humanitarian approach of that those people who are in distress and those who, if they want to go to Pakistan for some reasons, or if they want to temporarily, they are working for some organizations here, but they want to temporarily relocate their offices in Pakistan. So we have tried to help them. But we believe that this is a temporary process. We don't believe that this is a new load of refugees. We believe that this is a temporary relocation process, and that is why we believe that international community has to remain engaged with Afghanistan in humanitarian engagement, in also helping them governance.
They've frozen all of Afghanistan's foreign exchange reserves.
Yes, this will cause problems to Afghanistan, but I hope that as the new interim political setup, the new government engages with the rest of the world, starting with the humanitarian engagement, and then ensures a constructive engagement with the international community. I think they will find the ways for addressing these issues. No country can live in isolation in the 21st century. It is an interconnected world, and we have to if we have to work for peace and stability in Afghanistan, and we have to ensure that Afghanistan does not once again become a safe haven or sanctuary for international terrorist groups like ISIS, Daesh, TTP, JUA, ETIM, then we have to work with Afghanistan in a constructive manner to bring peace and stability here. And you already saw during the evacuation phase a very dangerous terrorist attack took place, killing more than 170 people, including many American lives.
It's been 20 years since the war on terror began. Pakistan was an integral part of it.
Yes.
It received coalition support funds, but it also received a lot of scorn from American policymakers for, quote, playing a double game. On the one hand, supporting the Americans, on the other hand, supporting the Taliban. You are a key man on Afghanistan for Pakistan.
Yes.
Not now, but for many years.
Yes.
What is your assessment of Pakistan's role, position, and the outcome as it stands now after 20 years of this global war on terror?
You are right. We have spent many challenging years. As I told you that if there is stability in Afghanistan, Pakistan greatly benefits from it. If there is instability in Afghanistan, it permeates into Afghanistan. And because of terrorism, instability in Afghanistan, internal warfare in Afghanistan, we saw that during this past 10-15 years, we lost more than 80,000 of our people, including security personnel. Our estimate is that our economy lost $150 billion in terms of investment potential and other economic benefits. So I think it is our focus now is and remains that there is peace and stability in Afghanistan, longer-term peace and stability in Afghanistan through a sustainable political process so that we can enter into an engagement of regional connectivity with Afghanistan and through Afghanistan with Central Asian countries. And I think all of Afghanistan's neighbors who came together in a conference hosted by Pakistan on 8th September, the same day when Taliban also announced their interim political setup here, this emphasis on regional connectivity, the benefits of regional connectivity. So I would say that we are at a point when this is not a zero-sum game in Afghanistan. All the international forces want to play a constructive role and want to take Afghanistan out of the more than 4 decades of internal conflict, warfare, instability.
Ambassador Mansoor,
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ali. Thank you.